The following is an ESG 360 video.
Hi, I'm Colm Keegan, Senior Analyst from Enterprise Strategy Group.
Hi, and I'm Mark Bowker, Senior Analyst as well. Colm, in our previous video, we talked about what businesses need to look for when evaluating cloud service provider. And we ended discussion about how alternative IT consumption models like converged and hyper-converged infrastructure are really starting to gain increased adoption in private data center environments. Let's talk for a minute on what's driving this adoption.
Well, there's really a couple of drivers for this increased appetite for converged and hyper-converged infrastructure, or what we like to call integrated computing platforms, or ICP, here at ESG. The first is that businesses of all sizes are trying to reduce the time and complexity of integrating and managing separate pieces of IT infrastructure, namely virtualized computing environments with storage and networking resources. These components in the past have typically been treated as separate silos, often managed by separate IT administrators and management tools. So, for example, if a developer asks for a new virtual machine instance, he or she may have to make separate requests with potentially 2 or even 3 different people. Then, of course, they have to wait for each component to be configured and provisioned before they can even begin working on their new application service. It can easily take days, if not weeks, for the provisioning process to complete. And frankly, businesses can't wait that long to deploy new services. And if they do, they could be outflanked by a competitor.
Yeah, I agree. And I would add that another primary driver is the need to improve operational and IT resource efficiencies. A recent ESG survey revealed that many businesses have a critical shortfall in IT skill sets, and unfortunately, it's not that easy to find seasoned IT people. It can take as long as 6 months or longer to find and hire the right person. That's if you have the budget and headcount. So most businesses are looking for a way to simplify their environment so that IT staffs aren't overburdened with day-to-day management. Converged and hyperconverged are designed specifically to drive simplicity into the environment so administrative tasks are minimal.
Well, certainly operational simplicity is key to improving IT's ability to be more responsive to the business. Respondents to a recent ESG IT spending intention survey also listed purchasing new technologies with an improved ROI as a top cost containment strategy.
Yeah, absolutely, Colm. We often hear how compute, storage, and networking resources go underutilized. And part of this is due to the fact that we often see virtualized workloads isolated or siloed from each other. In other words, an SAP environment may have its own discrete server, storage, and networking resources, while a VDI environment is off on its own corner and never will the two share its resources. This drives up the total cost of ownership and increases complexity because there's just more stuff for IT to manage.
Right. So I think between the need for greater agility to rapidly provision virtualized application resources, along with the need for improved efficiencies and simpler management, converged and hyperconverged are getting the attention they deserve. Mark, let's talk about the differences between the two and where it might make sense to deploy one versus the other.
Absolutely, Colm. We get this question all the time. So let's start with converged infrastructure. As the name implies, converged solutions essentially pre-integrate all the components in the factory. This includes server, storage, networking switches. Put them on a rack and drop ship them to the customer's data center location. They're effectively designed to be as close to plug and play as possible. Once the customer powers up the rack and assigns an IP addresses, they can immediately start deploying VMs. There's no need to configure volumes or LUNs or perform any network zoning, etc., because that's all been done by the vendor. Hyperconverged solutions, on the other hand, put all of the compute, storage, and networking resources into the same sheet metal. In other words, there's no need to separate physical components housing servers, storage, and networking switches. It's all self-contained and is typically configured in a nodal design architecture for high availability. And some of these solutions include extended capabilities like WAN optimization, data deduplication, and compression, and native cloud connectivity features.
Okay, well that helps clarify it a bit. I guess the next question is then, when would a business opt for a converged solution over a hyperconverged solution, and vice versa? Is one ICP platform better suited to some workloads versus the other?
I hate to say it, but it depends. So what is interesting is we're not seeing businesses choose one platform over the other based on any specific application or workload requirement. In large part, it often depends on what hypervisor platform they're standardizing on, overall scalability of the solution, and how well it integrates with existing customer management framework like VMware vCops or vRealize, for example. The performance, and of course, the total cost of ownership. I should also add that many vendors are also providing reference architectures so that if a client wants to build their own converged solution, they could potentially repurpose their existing virtualized server, storage, and networking assets.
That makes sense. I think what may be interesting to many businesses, regardless of their size, is that some of these offerings don't necessarily require a large upfront investment. In other words, you can start small and then grow it out over time. And that was really one of the big knocks with traditional scale-up storage architectures. You had to figure out what your performance and capacity requirements were going to be over a 3 to 5 year period, and in some cases, make a large upfront investment just to ensure you wouldn't outgrow the capabilities of the array. And I think that's fair to say that that alone contributed to many of the inefficiencies inside the data center.
Yeah, Colm, I couldn't agree more. And that's essentially what the promise of hybrid cloud computing offers the business. A way to provide resources in a just-in-time fashion that allows you to rapidly meet the needs of the business without overspending. And converged and hyper-converged solutions can be a great first step towards that hybrid cloud journey of building those just-in-time capabilities into the data center.